from the local station. This is Weather Authority Weekday.
Welcome to Weather Authority Weekday. I'm meteorologist Mark Collins. We're in the middle of this heat wave, so I thought it would be interesting to ask you, what do you think is the hottest city in Jacksonville? What is their hottest recorded temperature? Is Jacksonville hotter or is Tampa? Well, it might be kind of logically thoughtful to say, hey, it was Tampa. Tampa would be hotter than Jacksonville, right? Well, actually, Jacksonville's hottest temperature recorded on record is 104 degrees. Tampa was 99. You notice I used past tense, was. Yesterday, Tampa reached their hottest temperature ever of 100 degrees. And yesterday, Jacksonville tied a record of 100. So we're probably not going to get to 104 and break the all-time record here in Jacksonville, but it is interesting to see just how hot the state has felt with this heat wave. In fact, why has Tampa never gotten to 100 before, except until yesterday? Well, usually the water comes in, or the air comes in from the west off of Tampa Bay, and it keeps them from reaching 100. Yesterday was an unusual situation where there's very dry air and a northerly land breeze there in Tampa, and that brought in the heat and allowed them to punch up to 100, setting an all-time record for that area. Now, let's talk about here in our local backyard, because right now it is 10 o'clock and it's already 90 degrees. Now, let's not get the air temperature that's measured on the thermometer confused with a heat index or a feels-like scale. That real feel, as some companies call it, factors in the humidity. And when you put that humidity with the air temperature, it feels like already 99 in Jacksonville and some spots in Georgia feeling like 106 degrees. Bear in mind, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So guess what happens later this afternoon? It's going to feel more like 113 or hotter. And when it gets that hot on the feels like index, there's an extra advisory. Typically, there's a heat advisory when it feels like 108, but today we're under an excessive heat warning. So it's an upgrade to what is a typical heads up warning put out by the National Weather Service. You don't see any cloud cover. It's going to be a pretty sunny day. There's not going to be rain today, so that's going to allow us to sizzle with oven-like conditions. As high temperatures, the actual thermometer will reach triple digits area-wide. And you're not going to get much relief along the beach, since that sea breeze will be kind of tempered by the offshore land breeze. So there's not much flow coming in off the ocean, so even the beach isn't going to cool you down. It's going to be a scorcher out there, but those inland areas will easily climb to at least 100 degrees. And bear in mind, if we were to break a record, it'd have to be like 104, which is probably just short of where we'll wind up here today. All right, so like I talked about, there's two different types of heat advisories. We've been under several heat advisories so far this summer, but today will be the second extreme heat warning that we have seen. And tomorrow we might not be under that heat warning, but we'll still be under the heat advisory. So this is just an extra level higher of heat. And, you know, we live in Florida. We know to hydrate. We know how to, try to use light colored clothing to stay cooler. And there are cooling shelters that have opened up here in Jacksonville. One is at the Main Street Library in downtown Jacksonville. And you can see this quilt work of colors. The pinks are those higher level warnings for heat. That is around areas that have lakes or coastal areas or the Mississippi River, since that extra humidity will make the feels like scale be even more intense than some of those other inland areas under orange that are under a heat advisory. So putting this all together, hot car deaths are a big problem here. And some people will say, well, I could leave my dog in there just for a little bit if I crack the window. Well, what this shows is the cracked window temperature in yellow versus the windows completely rolled up. And you notice not a big spread there, so it really doesn't cool the car down if you crack the window. So for instance, after a half hour, if you leave your window cracked, it's going to feel about 115 versus having them rolled up, which would feel about 127 to 130 degrees. Either way, someone could die in the car like that or suffer complete heat stroke. So with this type of weather here, just remember what is in your car when you go to park it today. All right, so let's look at some of the records across the area. Now, Craig and Arlington, their database doesn't go back to the 1800s, so their records are shorter, and they are in contention of setting a record there. Alma, Georgia will likely either tie or surpass a record, and you could come close to a record in the coastal communities there at St. Simon's Island. So it's a hot day, one of the hottest days on record here. And what I did was I put the records in yellow at the bottom, and you can see how the forecasted temperatures, that should actually be about 100 degrees. I don't know why it didn't update on this map, but we could come within several degrees of a record today and then close to it on Wednesday, since the historical record for Jacksonville is 100 degrees tomorrow, and then it stays about 102 through August. And I don't think we're going to hit actual triple digits for the remainder of the month. So the reason why it's so hot is we have stagnant air, high pressure. There's not much circulation. There's dry air, sinking air under this high. That's what all those orange colors represent here on the map. And with that type of situation, not only is it going to be hot, but it will suppress the odds for rain. So there's not going to be rain today along the beach. Inland areas might see an isolated shower, but it's really too low to mention, so we'll leave it at a silent 10% POP, as we abbreviate probability of precipitation. And here you can see the forecast model backs up the logic here, where there's really not a lot of cloud cover to develop today. So Monday's looking pretty dry. Tuesday, we will see a little better chance of mainly inland showers as that sea breeze rolls in. You can see how the Gulf and East Coast sea breeze converges around the Lake City area, possibly bringing some showers into the Trail Ridge zones well west of the St. Johns River. So again, Tuesday, dry for many of the metropolitan areas. And really, I'm not seeing much rain picking up in the forecast until a pattern change, and that would be over the weekend, where we see the heat break and rain chances increase. So again, a lot of 100s showing up, mid-90s along the beach today versus those 100s in town. All of Georgia, even closer to the coast, will likely top out around 100 degrees. And our southern areas around Gainesville and into Palatka could get close to 100, if not a degree or two shy of that. Now, the odds of rain will start to pick up over the weekend, so that is some reprieve in the heat. I think Sunday, a better chance for seeing some showers and thunderstorms here as we start to see the storm machine start to fire up again over the weekend. But it's going to be kind of sputtering out here initially by the end of the work week, and then mostly inland showers Saturday before more broader coverage for the second half of your weekend, and then things getting back into that rainier pattern into next week. So it's not just here in Florida, in our backyard, that's dealing with the heat. Temperatures reaching triple digits all the way up into the Corn Belt. Places today will be around 100 degrees up across the southern plains, like in South Dakota. Then by Wednesday, they'll actually see a cold front come through. That cold front will push in to Chicago for tomorrow morning and then bring down a cooler air mass into the northern tier of the nation. And some of that will push towards the eastern seaboard. But it doesn't really bring us any cool weather, but it will increase our rain chances into the upcoming weekend as that frontal boundary sags further south. So taking a look here, you can see how dry it is across much of the deep south. Really not much firing up until we get into like tomorrow in the Louisiana area, in the lower Mississippi Valley. Return flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico will bring in some showers there. Also, behind that trough line, there could be a better chance of rain up into Georgia, central and mainly northern Georgia, but that dry air is carved out in our communities of Camden and Glenn County. Notice that front brings in some stronger weather tomorrow morning into Wednesday across the Chicagoland area. They could be dealing with some thunderstorms and some severe weather potential up there across the Great Lakes. Now, turning our attention to the tropics, everything stays quiet. It stays quiet through the rest of the week. There's nothing developing in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean basin. There's a lot of hype, people looking all the way out to August for the next named storm. Well, let's just show you the GFS model, because there's two tropical waves that show no potential for early development. The second one will be a little bit stronger than this first one that I highlighted. So this takes you to the middle of the week, where we're looking at two waves which are in the far central eastern Atlantic. Now, there's some very dry air there. There's also a tremendous amount of shear, upper level winds blowing from west to east. And that obliterates that first tropical wave. Where you see the white, more cloud cover, that's a stronger wave that's a little bit further up in latitude. And so that could avoid some of that shearing wind, but the air is quite dry around it. But here I've stopped it this weekend on Saturday, where you could see it would be approaching the Lesser Antilles. Maybe a little bit of rotation in there, but not a lot of thunderstorm development. So we'll watch by the end of the week to see if any thunderstorms could develop. But this model takes that wave into the Lesser Antilles with some rain around some of the islands like Barbuda, Antigua, and even St. Martin. But then by Sunday, you really don't see much development there. So there's another model, the European model, that doesn't develop anything at all. That model I showed you, the GFS, was the more stronger of those tropical waves. By mid-August, if you can believe a model 2 weeks out, it shows an area of low pressure on the European. But again, that's 2 weeks out. So any meteorologist wouldn't really be talking about a deterministic model 2 weeks out in advance. And to look here, you can see how wave heights stay really small, flat. There's low risk for rip currents. There's really no trade wind swells coming in our area with this ridge of high pressure. So no tropical waves generating any long distance ground swells for surfers here throughout the next couple of days. And unfortunately, the dog days of summer are dealing with heat and flat conditions for the beaches. Best chance is to book a plane ticket to the Pacific and find some good waves there for those southern hemispheric swells. So I did increase rain chances to 30% tomorrow. That's mainly west of Jacksonville. Otherwise, it's a really dry week. Friday, we might start to see some showers develop during the afternoon with those isolated afternoon thunderstorm potential to round out the end of the work week. And then, like I mentioned, over the upcoming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we'll start to get back into that normal routine. But still, I think it's mostly inland showers and thunderstorms. So unprecedented heat is with us here today. Today is going to be the peak of the heat. Tomorrow will be almost as hot before we start to see those conditions ease up just a little bit. But above normal temperatures all week long. Hey, try to stay cool. And, the best place to do is right here in front of a computer screen and the air conditioner. All right, we'll catch you at the same time, same place tomorrow.
See why every day more people are choosing News 4 Jax, Northeast Florida and South Georgia's #1 source for local news.